Hey guys, it's Stacy from My Seed Garden. Thank you so much for watching this video. So I actually want to talk to you guys about two topics today, and they're both topics that I actually get quite a few questions on when I go through the comments in my on my videos. So I figured let's talk about both of them in this video. The first topic that I'm going to be talking about is about my watering. So I actually made some notes here in regards to the questions that I noticed from you guys. So the number one question that I think I get asked the most is regarding my top dressing. How do I water when I have top dressing? How do I know when to water when I use top dressing? Is there any special techniques that I use in terms of telling when my plants need watering? How often do I water, etc. And then the other topic that I noticed a lot of questions on is in regards to humidity. So a lot of you guys ask me, how long do I keep my humidifiers on for? What is the humidity level that I try to keep it at? How do I keep it from going too crazy where my whole room is wet? Yes, questions along the lines of that. So I'm gonna talk to you guys about all of that today. And just before I start this video, I just want to preface this by saying that what I'm going to tell you in this video is basically what works for me in my home, in my space. So just take it with a grain of salt because everybody's environment is different. So what works for me might not work for you and vice versa. So just keep that in mind. What I'm telling you is not you know, like this is how you should do it. It's just me sharing my experience with my plants in my space with you guys. Okay, so I hope you find this useful, and if you have any more questions after this video, as always, just feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to do so, and let's get into the video. So let's start off with watering. I wrote down some key points that I want to talk to you guys about. But let's start off with why I use top dressing. There are a few reasons why. The first reason is that I really enjoy the look of top dressing when people have cacti and succulents and they always top dress their plants. And from there, I just figured I can use it onto my houseplants and see, you know, how I like it. And since then I have just continued to do so. I think that it's such a nice, neat look for your plants when you're displaying it around your home. And also I feel like it keeps everything very tidy, because with soil it can just kind of blow everywhere, or like, you know, you can have a little bit of a wind and the soil will get onto your surfaces. So with top dressing I feel like it keeps things nice and tidy, and that's just something I prefer personally. So that's another reason why. And then fungus gnats. Now fungus gnats like to lay eggs on the top layer of the soil, and for me, I just personally feel like if I have top dressing on, it'll help prevent some of that opportunity where the fungus gnats can lay eggs. That being said, it does not completely prevent fungus gnats. In whatever little way it helps, I'm okay with it. I'm sure they will find a way to get in the soil and lay their eggs, and they do, but it doesn't hurt, right? Okay, I think those are the main reasons why I use top dressing. Oh, one more reason is that sometimes when I first transplant a plant into a new pot and repot it, the plant, because it hasn't established itself in the pot and the soil yet, it's a little bit wobbly, and having the top dressing, it kind of helps aid stabilizing it. And I know in bonsai sometimes people put rocks around the trees to keep them, you know, upright or the way they want it, and I think it's a similar concept. For me, if I have rocks around it, I usually put it around the base of the plant, and that's where I focus a lot of it on. It really helps keep the plant stable. Okay, so those are all the reasons. And then in terms of watering. How do I know when to water? So obviously when I have top dressing, I cannot use my eyes to tell if the soil is dry or wet. So the first thing I would recommend is a moisture meter. So I think I've talked about this before in my Q&A video. Just get they're really cheap. They're like $8 for a moisture meter. You don't have to get anything fancy or too pricey. And what they do is you could just stick it in the soil and it'll have a meter up top that tells you whether your soil is dry or wet or in between, and depending on the need of your plant, you'll know when you need to water. So that is something I recommend for beginners, or if you're not too familiar with your plants yet, or if you want to use top dressing, that's a great way to tell. I already kind of established this relationship with my plants where I can tell when they need to be watered, and I'll tell you guys some other ways you can tell as well. But I still use the moisture meter today, even though I have an established schedule with them. For my larger plants, where I can't use the other methods as efficiently, I will use the moisture meter to just see if it needs watering. So another way to tell is by lifting the pots. And that's something that I guess comes with time. Once you get more familiar with your plant, you can tell whether a plant feels light or heavy, meaning it's still pretty wet. So once you can tell whether a pot is light to the sense that it's dried up, where the soil is really dry, so just kind of get a feel of, you know, what your plant feels like in terms of weight in the pot when it's dry versus when it's just watered. That is a good telltale sign of, you know, when your plant might be thirsty. Obviously, like I mentioned, if it's a bigger plant in a larger pot, that's just not something I can do, lifting it and such. So that I would rely on the other method, which is a moisture meter. And going back to moisture meters, there are some really nice moisture meters that are available these days. I know there's one from RT1 Home that I really like. It's very minimal looking, it's discreet, and it's tiny, and it's something that you can actually keep in the pot with the soil so that you don't have to keep bringing your moisture meter and sticking it in, because it stays in your pot permanently. Well, I mean, not permanently, you can take it out, but it's meant to be, you know, in your pot. So that is also something I use. And then there are some pots that actually come with a kind of moisture meter or water meter that can tell you, you know, if your plant needs water. Okay. Next method, actually, some plants will tell you when it needs watering. So you just have to keep an eye out for your plants telling you, you know, I'm thirsty. So for example, pothos, their leaves will tend to curl when they are in need of a watering. So you'll see that like the actually all of the pothos, golden pothos, Scindapsus pictus, Silvery or Exotica, they all curl when it needs watering. So that's a great way for your plant to communicate with you, oh, I need water. And there are some plants that are very, very vocal about whether they need water or not. So you just have to kind of keep an eye out. And then there are some plants like Hoyas and Peperomia. Their leaves will feel much softer when they are in need of watering. And I know some Hoyas actually wrinkle up when it's thirsty. So yeah, just keep an eye out on your plants because they're constantly trying to communicate with you, telling you what they need in terms of care. So just be aware of your plants, and I think that's a great way to start. Okay. I think that covers everything in terms of, you know, all the questions regarding top dressing and how do I water, how do I know when to water. So hopefully that addresses a lot of your questions. Let's move on to humidity. So in terms of humidity, let me just let you guys know what the humidity is like in my space. I live in New York City. It is pretty dry for the most part. In my apartment, during the winter time, the humidity level without any, you know, additional humidifiers stays around 20%. So it is very, very dry, and that's why in the winter time is when I use and rely on humidifiers the most. And then during the spring and summer, which is right now, the humidity level without any kind of extra humidifiers stays around, I would say, 30 to 40%. Still very low. On a rainy day, it will probably get up to 60%. Now, I have 2 full-size humidifiers, meaning you know, they can actually make a difference. I have some smaller humidifiers that I've shown you guys before. They're like the cordless tabletop ones that I can bring around like in my plant shelf to just kind of give that little small area some extra humidity. So I have a few of those that I kind of just put around my shelves here and there. Those don't really do too much in terms of really increasing the humidity in your space to the point where you guys have asked me, does it affect my walls? Does it create molding issues? I've never encountered any type of molding issues or anything like that really. So because my humidity is already so low, even with humidifiers running, it never gets to that point. I think with humidifiers, it might get up to 70, high 70s. I haven't really measured the ones out in the living room, but I'll show you guys the humidity meter that I use. It's just very tiny and basic. I mean, I just need to know like what the humidity is. And I keep those basically inside my terrariums just to see how the humidity is in the terrarium. And in the terrarium, the humidity is usually above 90%. So yeah, so how long do I run my humidifiers on for? So right now during the spring and summertime, I don't really run it for too long, probably 4 hours top sometimes, and then I'll shut it off. In the winter time, however, I usually run it for about like 6 hours, give or take. Yeah, so that's pretty much how long I run it for. And I have one main one in the living room where I put around my aeroids that kind of need that extra humidity. Otherwise, most of my plants in my collection do not require additional humidity. Do they grow better with humidity? Probably. But I am trying to stay away from plants that require humidity just to survive. At one point, I did have a lot of diva plants that require a lot of humidity, and it was just too stressful for me because my natural environment in my apartment and my home is just not suitable for these plants that require so much humidity. So and I don't want my home to get to a level where it's just uncomfortable, where it's so like wet and humid feeling. That's not what I want for my home, and that comes with a whole slew of issues that you guys have mentioned to me, including molding, you know, affecting my walls. So that's not something I want to get to a point with. So yeah, so I try to avoid plants that require that type of environment. I do have terrariums where I will put some of my fussier plants in. That's what they're for. And yeah, let's see. I think that addressed all the questions that I've noticed. If you guys have any more questions, just leave them in the comments below. And that will conclude this video. I hope I answered some of your questions. And again, the things that I'm telling you in this video are things that work for me. It's just a matter of personal preference, and I feel like a lot of times with caring for your plants, it's all trial and error. And when you guys ask me questions or advice, I always tell you guys it's probably best to just try it out for yourself. I would say when I first started with houseplants, I was like nervous and I want to follow the rules that would help, but as time went on, you kind of learn that you can't be afraid to test out certain things with your plants, because you just never know until you try it for yourself. And that's also something that I just wanted to make sure I let you guys know. So So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of your continued support, and I really appreciate all of your comments. Every time I see your comments, it really just makes me so happy. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much. Really, truly, I don't think you would even understand how grateful I am. If you haven't already subscribed, comment, and liked, please do so. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!